Hey, everybody. Welcome to the Jim Masters Show, live entertainment, lifestyle, variety talk show series. How's everybody doing today? It's so nice to see all your smiley faces. Thanks so much for joining us. We love having you here. Very busy day for me on the air all day today. It's been really, really crazy busy, but we love it. That's what we do. That's what we do working in television and radio. You do a lot of producing and hosting and talking and going on location and interviewing and writing and all that crazy stuff. And now we're here with all of you watching from around the world, our Lovity squad, the Jim Master Show Lovities. Hey, gang, if you would like to comment while the show is live, we always welcome and invite you to do that. You can do it in our JMS Lovity chat room, which is a chat room that we have created just for you. When the show is live, guess what? You can comment during the show and say hello to one another. A lot of our viewers have already done that. Our Lovities have been saying hello to one another. And you can say hello to us as well. And we might even get a chance to sprinkle a comment or two on the screen as well. Right around there, possibly. Don't forget, you can also do super chat, super emoji, super stickers in the live chat room. That helps support the Jim Master Show live series, our entertainment, lifestyle, variety talk show series, where we're inching closer on some 800 episodes that we've done thus far, which is really, really cool. Our guest is coming from New York City. Yes, I hope you guys are doing well wherever you're watching around the world. We do want to send our love and prayers to everybody in Florida. We have family and friends there as well, and a lot of colleagues, and many of you probably do as well, our viewers watching. Now, at the time of this show, again, we're doing this live. So if you watch this 6 months from now, this is old news, but we're saying it to those who are watching live. We send our love and prayers because Hurricane Ian has made landfall in Florida, and it's a very powerful Category 4, almost 5 hurricane coming in from the southwest part of Florida. So we send all of our love here at the Jim Masters Show and prayers to everybody that they get through it, unscathed and hopefully with as least amount of inconvenience as possible. There will be inconvenience and things of that nature. It's already happening, but we're sending our best and our love to everybody there in Florida. We have a lot of Florida viewers too, a lot of Lovity Squad members who are in Florida, who are hunkered down right now, and they'll watch this definitely in the archives. So we send them our love. Ronald Rand is joining us. Yes, celebrated Goodwill Cultural Ambassador. That's something that the world definitely needs more of: goodwill and kindness and empathy and so much more. I don't know about you, but my allergies the last several weeks have been miserable. It's been a rotten year of allergies this year. But getting back to Ronald, celebrated Goodwill Cultural Ambassador, acclaimed director and performer, joining us here on the show. He's also a visiting guest professor as well, internationally award-winning director and author of Solo Transformation on Stage. Starring around the world in his 22nd years, Harold Clurman, the elder statesman of the American theater, in his celebrated solo play, Let It Be Art. And we've got clips to show you too, some really cool exclusive clips that Ronald has supplied our show that we can show you. Ronald has received standing ovations in 26 countries and 20 states at the World Theater Olympics in New Delhi, and also 3 critically acclaimed off-Broadway productions. Ronald has appeared in leading roles in several off-Broadway productions, regional theaters, and over 100 films, television shows. Yeah, isn't that incredible? He's worked with Christopher Plummer as well. He's been in the Royal Tenenbaums, Family Business with Sean Connery, Quiz Show with Ralph Fiennes and Paul Scofield, directed by Robert Redford. In and Out, Homeless, Opposite Yoko Ono, all of the Law and Order series shows. He's been on all of them. That's right. So Law and Order fans, you'll see him on those. Several seasons also of Saturday Night Live. That's right. SNL. You know him there from SNL as well. As an internationally award-winning director, his production of the hit comedy Love ran for 8 years at the prestigious Chamber Theater 55 in Sarajevo. That's right. He's the best-selling author of Acting Teachers of America, Create, and again, his newest book, Solo Transformation on Stage. The U.S. Department the State Department chose Ronald twice as a Fulbright specialist, and he has been an adjunct professor at 3 universities and also a visiting guest professor as well. It's not that reaction. He's amazed by all of these accolades and by this introduction, this incredible Oscar-worthy introduction that I'm giving Ronald here. That's the look of amazement, like, oh my God, I didn't know I did that, and I forgot I did that too. Yeah, Fulbright specialist, and he's been an adjunct professor at 3 universities and a visiting guest professor at over 40 universities around the world. He is the founder and publisher of The Soul of the American Actor newspaper, the only newspaper in print and online about the art of the actor, the theater, and all the arts in North America. Yeah, so much more. For the first time in solo transformation on stage, Ronald has pulled the curtain aside on his 2-hour transformation as he embodies Harold Clurman in his, we're going to talk about this too, in his acclaimed solo play, Let It Be Art, taking readers around the world. And also the book, Solo Transformation on Stage, within the book's pages, you'll also find over 20 inspiring interviews with notables like Christopher Plummer, Ben Vereen, Adrienne Barbeau, incredible. Tony LoBianco, who's a personal friend of mine, Olympia Dukakis, Stephen Lang, and Julie Harris, and so many others. He's also included experiences with his mentors, Stella Adler, and also Harold Clurman, and many others. Life-changing moments of depth on stage, working with folks like Cicely Tyson and James Earl Jones, Sidney Poitier, Laurence Olivier, Ira Aldridge, John Barrymore, Lorette Taylor, George C. Scott, and Marlon Brando, just to name a few, gang. Yes. So that's why that you see that photo there. It's like, what? He's amazing. And again, he's joining us here exclusively on the Jim Masters Show live series. Thanks for all the comments that are coming in already. We love it, gang. Keep them coming. Coming to us live from New York. He's all set and ready to go. It is my pleasure to welcome Ronald Rand to the show. Ronald, welcome to the Jim Masters Show live series. Do you think you can reenact that look of, wow, there it is?
That was a great introduction.
Thank you very much. You've been quite busy, lad. You've been quite busy. It's incredible.
How are you? Back. Yeah, from Iceland, actually.
That's right. You did just get back from Iceland. Yeah. And were you working with Valerie David with her project?
No, actually, she was doing her show in the same festival I was. We were invited to be in the International Act Alone Theater Festival.
In Reykjavik?
And actually, it was in a small fishing village all the way at the very end of the island of Iceland, in a small fishing village, Suðuroy. And
wow.
And I brought my show there, Let It Be Art, and I actually also got to meet for the first time and see Valerie's show. And she told me all about you, and that's how we got introduced.
That's right. She's got that amazing show, The Pink Hulk, and it's so moving, and it's so endearing, and it's so special, isn't it?
And she's got a new show that she just took to Stockholm and won some awards. So she's doing very well.
That's right. She was in Stockholm.
Yes. Yeah. So she just got back. So it's been thrilling. I mean, when you have a solo show and you're able to take it around the world, it's a chance to really, in a sense, introduce people to a whole new world and also help heal the world at the same time.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah. So what was Iceland like? Was that your first time there to that country?
It was. And it's truly amazing because it's the land, of course, of volcanoes that actually one erupted while I was there. And we were wondering if we were actually going to get
Is it the one that was the major one that was going on and on and on and on?
Well, that one I think was a different one. This is a new one all of a sudden, closer to the airport. So they were concerned whether or not we'd get through back to the airport and be able to leave.
See, but you come there, Ronald, and you shake things up.
It's amazing. And then it's the land of glaciers and waterfalls and geysers, and it was just absolutely amazing. But I got to know some wonderful people, because they're actually very happy people in
Yeah.
Reykjavik and in
Yes.
Iceland, beautiful people. And so it was a really great time. And also, I spent time with a wonderful director, Runar Gabranson, who is a very gifted teacher, director. He's the artistic director of Lab Loki, which is like the equivalent of Mabu Mines here in New York City. And
Yeah.
I got to spend many evenings with him. He had me at his house, and he also took me on a tour of Reykjavik. So I got a really firsthand introduction to Iceland,
Wow.
which was very
Wow.
special. Yes, and
That is fantastic. Wow. That is,
beautiful.
let's talk early on
Sure.
about your background. You mentioned that you grew up in Coral Gables, Florida, right there
Mhm.
next to Miami, beautiful area of southeastern Florida. And again,
Mhm.
prayers to everybody in Florida. As we said it earlier,
Sure. Yeah.
everybody knows somebody in Florida. Everybody always knows somebody in New York and in Florida, especially if you're East Coast.
Yeah.
And so, what were the inspirations? What was it like growing up for you? Were you surrounded by a lot of the arts and artistic family? What sort of inspired young Ronald to partake
Well,
in all this?
my mother, who's an extraordinary painter, artist, so she inspired me to start painting. I had a paintbrush in one hand when I was about 3 or 4, and my father, who loved the theater and also acted in college, and went on to become a critic as well as a lawyer and a tennis player and so many other things. He inspired me to go to the theater and took me to see a lot of shows. But as a child, I was always running around imitating everyone. When I was about maybe 4 or 5, 6 years old. So I was just all over the place. So finally, just to get me out of the house, they took me to a teacher who had a stage in her house. And I began to take acting lessons, or you might say improvisation, or Shakespeare, reading poetry. And what happened during one of those classes is that we did an improvisation where you actually choose 3 words on a piece of paper out of a little, like a glass jar, and you're up on the stage with 2 other young actors. And at that point, I was up there with the 2 other actors, and it happened to be something like princess and necklace and words like that. And at one point, we started improvising, and we're about 5 or 6 years old at the time, which was pretty amazing. But at one
Yeah.
point, one of the other youngsters said to me, "He stole the necklace. He has it." And of course, that would, send me to the gallows or something. And
Yes.
I thought at that moment, that was the end of my life. I thought I didn't take it. I couldn't have taken it. I didn't even know what it looks like. And I started talking about how it couldn't be me. And I just turned into a puddle of tears. And
Good thing you weren't in London. They would have sent you to London Tower.
exactly. And at that moment, Mrs. Brazo, that was the acting teacher's name, she came over and she hugged me and she said, "It's okay, but this is what acting is. And
Yeah.
you were acting." And at that moment, I realized this is what I want to do the rest of my life.
Yeah.
It was life changing. And so I went on to do
Great.
actually over 350 children's theater shows at a professional children's theater. And then I acted in a lot of plays and Shakespeare. And I also ended up on Que Pasa USA, the first
Oh,
bilingual
remember that on
TV show.
PBS?
Yes,
Yes.
exactly. So I had a
So
part.
did they
Rocky
film
Horror
that
Show.
at what is it? WPBT
It could
TV
be.
channel 2 in Miami?
Oh my God, you've got a great memory.
Yeah,
Yes, yeah.
right.
Well, the lead actor, his name was Rocky Echeverria from the University of Miami, but he became the fellow who was in the movie with Al Pacino.
Now,
So
were you bilingual?
no, I learned some Spanish, but
Yeah,
they wanted
because
to
I
have
used to
a
watch it,
friend
and
who only spoke a little
yeah,
Spanish and spoke English. And he said, "Oh, we're going to teach you how to speak Spanish. You're going to be part
yeah,
of us, the family." And so I
yeah.
became best friend on the show.
That's
So,
incredible.
and
Yeah,
then I ended up in the halftime game show of the Super Bowl because our high school was chosen to be in the middle of the Pittsburgh Steelers and this huge. So there I was in the middle of 95,000 screaming fans in the middle of the Super Bowl. So you just never know.
Wow,
when
from
you're
K
growing up.
Pasta USA to the Super Bowl. I mean, that's full circle. You know, I used to watch K Pasta USA, that series, family
Oh,
series, and I didn't understand what they were saying necessarily because I hadn't
mhm.
taken Spanish yet. I took Spanish in college, and
Yeah.
I really, really need some refreshers on it because I would love to
Mhm.
be a bilingual host.
Yeah.
And
Mhm.
I'm taking some, refreshers now. And but just in watching the actions
Mhm.
and some of the words that I knew in Spanish, um, I was able to sort of figure out what they were talking about and what some of the
Mhm.
dilemmas were. Just like when you watch the Spanish TV stations and you watch the very dramatic soap operas, the
Yes.
Spanish soap operas, which are very
Mhm.
dramatic and very the music,
Yes.
dun 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 dun,
Yeah,
and she
life-threatening, yeah.
slaps him in the face and like all, all that. Well, a slap is a slap, so you know what that is that in any
That's right.
language.
It's
And I
true.
would try to watch them and see, can I figure out without knowing the
Mhm.
language per se what
Yeah.
this scenario is? And you
Mhm.
pretty much can because it sort of mimics the
That's right.
soap operas that we're used to on television. Cool
Yeah.
stuff. So the Super Bowl. So what would you consider then a major door breaking opportunity for you? What was like one of those key things that got your career going and you noticed? I mean,
Well,
the Super Bowl's a big one. K-Pop USA is a big one.
it's so interesting because I knew at that point, actually in junior high school, that I was going to come to New York to study with Stella Adler. I already
Mm.
knew that. And I was reading all about the group theater, and I knew that Harold Clurman was in New York. And I tried out for New York University, of course. And right before I left, Eartha Kitt came. Oh, there's Stella.
There you are with Stella Adler. When
That's
was this, Ronald?
Well, this was actually at a party when the after I was studied with her for 5.5 years in New York City,
She's a
and this was
legend.
at a gala right after the I guess you might say one of the classes, and so we took a picture together, and she certainly. Of course, changed my life. But when I
Yeah.
came to New York City, I knew I had to study with her. And
Yeah.
of course, it made all the difference in the world. I
Mm.
did want to share with you just a few of her words since you put her up there,
Yes.
because what she ennobles you about being an actor, and at least it was life changing for me because I came out of high school, acting in all of the plays, thinking I knew everything about acting, and of course she turned my world totally upside down and proved that I knew nothing about how to be an actor. And what she said were things like, an actor represents 2,000 years of civilization the moment you walk on the stage, that it's up to you to study and understand all of the great arts. And Keats died at 25 and he knew everything. And so she would go on to say, feed your soul, feed your spirit. You have to know everything there is to know, because she believed that you had to be a human being first, and then you could learn how to act. And so we started from ground zero and worked our way up. And after the 4 years of studying with her, Bill Paxton, who was in the class, along with Kate Valk, who's part of,
Wow.
you
Yeah.
know, well, Bill and I became very, very close friends, and I wrote a lot of scenes for him and monologues in class, and we ended up working on the Zeus story, and we spent about 8 months in Central Park because if you were going to do a scene for Stella Adler, you had to be ready. I
You
mean, it
had
was
to be
part of
ready,
my
set, go. Yeah.
Exactly. So we were out there no matter what the season was. Sometimes it was in the dead of winter and we were still working on the Zeus story. And when we finally brought it in, and Stella was like this, she wanted to make sure that you knew exactly who you were and where you were as soon as you appeared on the stage, which was in
Mm,
her studio. And
yeah.
as soon as she saw us appear, she said, "Sit down, Bill." And he stepped back, and she got up, and all of a sudden she became the character opposite me in the Zeus story, and started saying a lot of the lines in the play.
Yeah.
Is that 79th Street, and what are you doing, and who are you, and oh, you shouldn't smoke that pipe, and it was just surreal. And this went on for almost 10 minutes. And here I
Wow.
was acting with Stella Adler, because she had been, of course, one of the greatest stage actresses of all time, with the group theater. And so she wanted to test me to see if I could stay who I was, where I was, and I was, of course, shaking like a leaf inside, but I completely relaxed. I stayed who I was. I knew where I was. And at the end, she said, see, he knows exactly what to do. And then Bill joined me and we went on with the scene. So she had that incredible innate gift to say, you have to know everything there is to know. And that really turned me into an actor at the very beginning. And at the same time, I was studying with Harold Clurman, which was a tornado, needless to say. And at the same time, I was studying with the great Polish director, Jerzy Grotowski, up at Columbia University. So this was quite a lot to take, I'll tell you, but it made a life-changing, memorable experience for me.
Mm. So did you know what area you wanted to go into? Were you looking for things that were classical works? Did you want to go into comedy, drama? What was, or what, all of the above? What was really speaking to your heart and soul, Ronald?
Well, at that point, I wanted to act. And so if you decide to go into TV or film or do industrials or commercials, you've got to learn that craft. There's different tools. You have to know how to be in front of a camera. I wanted to do theater first. So I actually was very fortunate to get into production of Julius Caesar at BAM with Richard Dreyfuss while I was at NYU, which of course they discouraged us to do, but I had to still act. And I kept doing that. So I was in tons of shows, off and off Broadway, all through the years after I graduated. But there came a point in time, well, I said, I'm in New York City. I have to do soaps. I have to do film and television. I have to do industrials and commercials. So I took classes and I learned how to do each of those and do them the right way. So I ended up becoming quite busy, ended up doing hundreds of commercials, industrials, hundreds of film and TV shows. That's how I ended up doing all those films you mentioned.
Tell us about some of the TV shows and films and commercials that people watching might remember and recognize.
Well, it's so funny. I ended up being on one of the first videos of a rap video of KRS-One. I played a judge opposite him. And this was way before people thought about doing rap videos or anything. So it was at the very, very beginning. And then, of course, I actually was one of the Blues Brothers in a Japanese commercial, which was hysterical. But I became Dan Aykroyd, of course. So it was just amazing. I was Mozart in another one. And then at the same time, I ended up acting probably close to maybe 100 to 200 soap shows. So I began with Ryan's Hope, and I went to Another
Ryan's
World.
Hope, yeah. We just had Eileen Kristen on the other night, who was Delia and Roxy, and So Ryan's Hope, and what was the next one?
As the World Turns, Guiding Light. I mean, I ended up with roles on all of these different shows, and then at the same time started doing lots of films and television shows. I mean, doing SNL. See, I was on SNL probably over a period of 10 years, running in and out of different skits, but then I ended up with some parts. And so I was on at the very beginning when Eddie Murphy and Billy Crystal were there. And lots of people like that. And then I worked with Dana Carvey and Phil Hartman and all through the years. So that was great fun.
Crystal, what was that? Was it Montalban when he would say, "You look marvelous"?
He would
do that.
Exactly. Yes.
And the time Eddie Murphy did his version of Fred Rogers and Mr. Rogers.
Priceless.
So you were on. So what was it like being on Saturday Night Live on SNL?
Well, you would get there early.
It's a fast-paced environment.
Incredible. But at the beginning of the week, there were rehearsals. And so they had to decide what skits were in and what skits worked and what didn't work and what skits you were in. So sometimes one show I ended up flying from one skit, running off stage, getting a costume, running onto another stage, running off stage, getting into another one and running to another skit. Yes. Sometimes it was like that. And it was extremely, as many people know, very cold in that studio. Yes. But one of the great things, of course, were the special guest hosts and also the music bands that were on the show.
Yes.
And people like Jim Carrey showing up. or Bruce Springsteen or people like that, you just were blown away because it was right in front of you, and it was hysterical. But it was always interesting to see, as the days went on, eventually to dress rehearsal on Fridays, what skits made it and what
Which
didn't
ones
make it.
didn't?
Yeah, and some of them, you were in, and then you weren't in because they cut some of your skits. There wasn't anything you could do. So it was just the way it was. But it was so great to do comedy, and it was live. And there's not many shows except for Jim Masters.
The Jim Masters Show. That's right. Bringing back the
Exactly.
lost art of conversation. Exactly. My friend Gina is the floor director there for Saturday Night Live. She's been with them for years. And whenever you watch and you see they pull out to a wide shot just before the commercial, and you show them running around after they completed the skit, and then they're moving the cameras around, getting ready for the next skit, you always see her with the headset. Come on, over here, run over here. And you would probably be one of the people that you're saying, we got to run over here quickly now. Put this costume on and put this mustache on, whatever you have to do.
Oh, yes. That's the way it was.
Do you remember a skit or two that was one of your personal favorites that you were involved in on SNL?
Well, it was so funny because I do remember a wonderful skit with Dana Carvey. And it was, she wasn't playing church lady. I mean, he wasn't playing church lady, but he was playing this.
Isn't that special?
Very special.
Yeah.
And at one moment, he was playing someone that you kept ringing the doorbell for him to answer. And he was just this outlandish character. And it was just so much fun. He tried to pull out every possible reaction, and you just didn't know what he was going to come up with. And then you had to come up with something totally different at the same time, too.
Right.
So that was
it's great training, too, to be a part of a show like that,
absolutely.
Right? It's mentally and physically, you're ramped up and all the cylinders are firing for sure. And
absolutely.
I mentioned television shows, too. Mention some of the shows that people recognize. I mentioned all of the Law and Order series, which is kind of exciting.
Yeah, what's so interesting is that I ended up not only being on the jury several times, but also being several different lawyers. But also one time I was chosen as a sketch artist because I'm also a painter and a sketch artist. And I got to the show early because that was what I was cast as. And I started doing this drawing of the whole set there and the judge and the jury and everything. And the director came along and looked at what I had, and he said, we're going to start on that. And that's how the show began, on my drawing at that moment. So you just never know. Another time, the whole show exactly it revolved around me. I was the head of a mafia boss, and they actually gunned me down in Times Square. And Mercedes Rule was my wife. So during the whole show, it had to do with what happened to me. But you see the whole murder right at the top of the show, and that was me. And I ended up on the front of the New York Post, all things. So you just never know what will happen when you work on these shows.
That is so funny, huh? That is
well,
incredible.
I also, went on to do so many films, and that was part of the joy, of course, being in New York City, because I would run from one film to another film to another film.
Right.
And then sometimes I was on a film for 2 weeks when I was working with opposite Angelica Houston in When in Rome, or I played Richard Nixon, actually opposite Eric Roberts. I was in the chair for 4.5 hours, turning me into an older Richard Nixon. And that was one of the interesting things. Exactly. Now be careful how you use that. And when I was growing up in Florida, well, one of the things I did on Miami Beach is I went to be part of the nightclub scene. And I did a lot of impressions at the nightclubs. Well, that looks very familiar. There I am walking down the street, and that young man is following me. Who does he think he is? And so,
so are you a crook or not?
No, definitely not. How dare you say something like that? And it was a great experience working with Eric. We had such a great time. That was a Cheech Marin film. A Rude Awakening.
Oh,
And
Cheech Marin. Yeah,
yeah,
sure.
so Eric was really cool to work with. We had a good time.
You've
And
played a lot of different characters over the years,
well,
huh?
that's actually a play that I did in a regional theater up in Vermont, and that was Captain Keller. And what's so marvelous about it is that when you're doing a show like that, it really challenges you to slip into who this person is. And that's what I
Right.
do and talk about in my book, Solo Transformation on Stage, because
Yes.
Captain Keller, of course, is the father of Helen Keller. And that's what I really believe in, because it's all about transformation in your life. And of course, whomever you bring to life as a person on the stage.
Tell us about the book for those who are watching and being intrigued by it. What inspired you to write it? And tell us a little bit about it.
Well, it was the most amazing thing because I had no idea I was going to do it. I was on tour with Let It Be Art down in Alabama, and it was February 2020. And all of a sudden, everything hit. The pandemic came. I had just finished this sold out show to a standing ovation. The audience was so beautiful down there. I had such a great time. And then that was it. The tour was over, and we
Everything
went into
stopped.
quarantine. And I thought to myself, what can I do? How can I express all of this that's inside me, all this passion that, of course, I learned from Harold Clurman and Stella Adler? And how can I share that? And I said, there must be some way that I can say something, and maybe I could put it down. And lo and behold, these words came that I had
Mhm.
no idea where they came from. I could not
Wow.
really have written this consciously.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden, it came pouring forth, and I began to see that there was a path, that there's a way to share how you can really go on an organic journey in creating a human being. See, to me, you're not really playing a character in a play on a stage. You're bringing to life a human being, and they
Right.
have to live in their life, in their given
Right.
circumstances. So that's why I go through this 2 hour transformation in what I call the creation room. For me, it's not a dressing room, it's actually a creation room. And at that moment, when I enter there, I have to make wherever and whatever country I'm in, whether I'm in a cave in Tbilisi, or I'm under the stars and acting on the grass in India, or I'm in Kathmandu or in Bangkok, wherever it happens to be, I have to make sure that this creation room is a place where creation can take place. So when I enter that space, I have to fill it with a whole different feeling of molecules that are in the air. And all of a sudden, when I allow that to occur, and I set out Harold Clurman's clothing, and I set out everything on the table that I need, that he's going to be using when he comes, and I start doing my makeup, and everything is happening at some point during those 2 hours, and I never know when. And forgive me for saying it, but this is how it occurs. He literally enters me, and he comes, and my blood changes, my soul changes, my whole body changes. And at that moment, I know that Harold Clurman has come because I'm an open vessel for him to arrive. And then he gets into his clothing, and he's not going on a stage, he's going into his apartment. And at that moment, when he arrives and enters his apartment, he's living and he's telling his stories to the students, which is the audience at that moment. And that's how he comes to life. And when he leaves and goes off to the theater at the end of the show, even though it's not a show to him, he's living his life. When I come back for the curtain call, I return. And
Mm.
that's how it's happened for hundreds and hundreds of performances all over the world in 26 countries and so many universities and colleges. And that's how this transformation occurs. And so I share that in Solo Transformation on Stage. And I was very blessed to have this gorgeous foreword by Stephen Lang, which I'm very, very grateful for. And also it gives me a chance to talk about how this process occurs, because when I teach my workshop, The Art of Transformation, in the book, you'll actually see Stanislavski's method of physical actions chart. And so in the book, I go through that whole chart, explaining that Stanislavski wanted us to see the soul of a human being on the stage. And there's the chart that I actually use. And so that chart starts with work on oneself, and it teaches you and how to go along all the different boxes, all that are in each one, how to eventually allow yourself to become a vessel and what is required of an actor. And so I go in depth in that. And not only did I learn this from Stella Adler and Harold Clurman, but I took a lot of classes when I was at Columbia University with Grotowski, and he had a dramatic impact upon me too. I don't know if you know the force of his work. And now, of course, there's Stanislavski, another great master. And so, of course, I go in depth in the book between Grotowski and Stanislavski and how their technique evolved and, of course, aligned with one another, and how Grotowski took it to a different place. But it's got to be a living, breathing technique for you every way. And as I explain in the book, it becomes your technique eventually. No matter what teacher you study with, it has to be able to express who you are as a human being and as this human being. That photo you're looking at actually is in Mysore, where I performed in India. And I've crisscrossed India 5 times already. So many universities and theaters and colleges. Every time I arrive, it's like coming back home in a way, because the people were so friendly. And I'm planning to go back there very soon again. So it's always a joy. Now, that was actually in Sri Lanka recently, where during the workshop, there was English I was speaking, Sinhala, and Tamil were being translated at the same time, 3 different languages, which was pretty amazing.
Wow.
Had the opportunity to work with the students and take them through many different kinds of exercises. And one of my favorites is always taking them flying. That's one of the beautiful, beautiful experiences I have. So I just never know what will happen. This is actually, as a director, I directed Love over in Sarajevo. And here's a production of Our Town down in Paysandú, Uruguay, where I was sent as a Fulbright specialist. They've sent me for 6 weeks to Bosnia, to Malaysia, and to Uruguay. And this was an extraordinary production because, for the most part, everyone only pretty much spoke Spanish. So I was working with translator. It was just a magnificent experience because they didn't know anything about America. And of course, Our Town, Thornton Wilder's play, takes place in New England.
Right.
So I had to spend time teaching them all about what America in a small town is like. And to tell you the truth, actually, in reality, since they're in Paysandú, it's very similar to a small town up in New England. And so they knew exactly how to bring it alive. And it was, of course, it was in Spanish. So the whole audience understood immediately what they were saying, and were completely entranced. Now, this is a production I did that I created. I brought to life Charles Dickens in my own adaptation of A Christmas Carol down in Tuscumbia, Alabama. And I decided to recreate how he was, because Charles Dickens, you might say, was the equivalent of Madonna today, or J-Lo on tour. He was a star. And when he did his talks and played all the different characters in his books and did his readings, they were sold out. And we're talking thousands and thousands of people had to attend Charles Dickens. He was just extraordinary to see. So I had recreated the exact kind of platform he used to hold his book. And it was quite an experience becoming Charles Dickens and acting out all the different characters in A Christmas Carol.
That's really incredible, right? Huh?
Yeah, it was quite an experience.
So when you created, Let It Be Art, let's talk about that. What was the inspiration? What was the mission, the vision behind it? What do you hope people take away from it as well?
Well, at the very beginning, I had no idea I was going to write a play about Harold Clurman. And when I told Stella Adler I was going to do it, she said, "Oh, no, no one can play Harold." But at the very end of the letter, she wrote, "P.S. If you have to, go ahead." And so that gave me permission. And I
Yeah.
started, of course, reading my notes and reading everything about Clurman and studying him. And of course, there's American Masters documentary about
Oh,
him.
yeah.
And it's just thrilling. But of course, at one point, I set everything aside and I said, "Harold, you're going to have to tell me what you want to say now." And that's how the play was actually really born. And so it comes through me. And I never know actually if he will say the lines in the play. I
Oh,
have no
really? It could
idea what he
change.
will do. Anything could happen, and
Yeah.
things have happened. And I go, "Okay, that's what you want to do," because inside I'm the actor, I'm the vessel, but he's living. You see,
Right.
it's just amazing. And at one point, I have to tell you, I was down in Barakabameha doing a performance at the Festival for Peace, and before the performance began, they were going to put up a screen because nobody spoke English down there in Colombia for the performance. So they were going to put it up with Spanish subtitles, but then the back wall was too far away. And they said, "We can't do it. Could we put a translator on the stage during the show?" And I said, "Well, if that's how we'll have to do it, we will." So I went over the script with a translator, and I had to go into the dressing room during the preparation and the transformation occurring. And I had to say to Harold Clurman, "There's going to be someone in your apartment, and they're going to be speaking Spanish, and they need to translate. And you're going to have to wait after every one or two sentences so what you say can be translated." And I didn't know what would happen. And I was there. I was utterly amazed to see what he did in his apartment because, of course, he was living. So he would make some notes. He would look at, try to find his cigarette, his matches to light his cigar. I mean, he was just living. And it was amazing because at the end of the show, the people came up through a translator. They said to me, "This performance meant like food for my soul." Absolutely changed my life because I'd never, ever heard these ideas from such a giant as Harold Clurman. And that's why I knew that this man had something to say for our time. He was a visionary, a humanitarian, and somebody who believed in the goodness of the soul and that we can make a difference every day as long as we do it through kindness, through common sense, through grace and love.
That's
and,
right.
and kinds of things. And
And
so,
levity.
oh,
And levity.
absolutely. Yeah, Clurman was one of the funniest persons on the earth. That's why the show is a mixture between passion and laughter. Sometimes the audience laughs so much. Clurman loves it. He just can't get enough when the audience is with him. And that's happened in so many performances all over the world. And
So you've taken this literally all over the world, which is incredible.
Yes, I've been to 5 continents, to 26 countries, and I now have been chosen, as you mentioned, the second time by the State Department as a Fulbright specialist. So I'm working on 2 more postings right now, and I actually am also talking to some other countries who want me to come back again. So it's
So I think we're going to have to send you a box of pamphlets about the Jim Masters show. So when you go to the different countries, you can drop them off and say, "Hey, tune in on YouTube to the Jim Masters show."
absolutely send them
we
my way.
are still looking for a viewer from the Arctic Circle. We haven't gotten anybody from the Arctic Circle yet. So when you
Yeah.
go there, we'll give you
Okay.
some pamphlets, some promotional
Okay.
brochures.
I've actually written to the station in the Antarctica,
You did.
offering me to come and perform for them because they have to spend, months and months there. And I said they need entertainment. So, I haven't heard back yet, but you never
No.
know.
Yeah. How is your Antarctica? She's still married to Uncle Ray?
One of these days.
Right. One of these days, bang,
Yeah,
Zoom, right?
that's right. I tell you.
We have a clip that you've
Uh-huh.
generously supplied us of you on stage in
Okay.
Let It Be Art.
All right.
And did you want to preface it at all, or
Well, I think it speaks for itself. I know that
yeah,
I gave you a few clips, but
yeah,
Clurman just explodes whatever he has to say, and we'll find
yeah.
out. Let's see what he says.
So this incredible show, gang, that we're talking about, Let It Be Arts, that's been on all these different continents and around the world. We're going to see an exclusive video of Ronald as Harold doing his thing, and then we're going to find out why he is a celebrated Goodwill Cultural Ambassador when we come back. So enjoy this, gang. This is really an incredible piece, and we appreciate Ronald supplying it to us here at the Jim Masters Show Live. Here it is.
I trudge from office to office. See me in a week out here. Nothing for you right now. We got too many already. Too many of you. You don't even have one of me. I beg, I plead, can't I just watch rehearsals? Finally, the Theater Guild, very prestigious theater today, casts me as a spear carrier. Yes, I'm moving up in the world. But one day, I'm alone practicing backstage. I hear this voice behind me. You're not holding that spear as if it just crossed the ocean with the greatest general in the world. I turn and find this rather short and tense-looking young man standing there. He's got an egg-shaped head of curly hair. The face looks like it just walked out of an El Greco painting. Here, I'll show you. So he takes my spear, assumes this fierce pose, gives it back to me, and walks away. I'm thinking, who the heck does this guy think he is? I'm also thinking what he just did made a lot of sense. I don't run into him again until we're auditioning for a musical. You didn't know I could sing, did you? Well, I can't. So I made him the stage manager. Now, the guy with the chutzpah, he's casting the show, of course. He can sing. Now he introduces himself. Lee Strasberg. And it's during rehearsals we ended up, particularly because he's even more passionate about the theater than I am. When he starts talking about acting, I never realized there was so much to know, but I tell him I'm not interested in techniques. What matters more to me than a play being well done is what's being done. It must relate to society. It must relate to what's going on. It must relate to us. He fires back, acting's an art. And today the actor is lost. He has no idea what he's doing. Not only has no idea, he has no idea what an idea is. He goes on, nothing matters, it's a truth on stage. We're not seeing it today. This is how you talk to me. You say play should have great meaning. Of course! A play has the power to change life. That only happens if all the actors are trained as an ensemble using the Stanislavski system. That's art, life on stage. And that's how we went on for weeks, for months. I talking about literature, he the theater. Well, by now I played a couple of small parts in some of the shows. I also become a play reader. I also catch the ear of my assistant stage manager. Now, her name was Cheryl Crawford. I see her head's bobbing up and down. Well, I tell her all about my talks with Strasberg. She gets excited. But you know what she tells me? You can't expect a theater guild to change the way they do business. That's just it, I said. Theater's not a business, it's an art. Look how they threw all those actors together on the last show. Edward G. Robinson, Morris Karnowski, Alfred Lunt, a better cast you couldn't have dreamed of. Still, it was deader than a doornail. Of course, it still goes on today. Whenever these big-time producers get a bee in their bonnet, they've got to do a classic. They immediately throw as many big names together. That way we'll think what they're doing is important. Who cares if we see 16 different styles of acting? Oh, you know, this is funny. This reminds me of the time when Teresa Helper, now she was the head of the Theater Guild, she meets Stanislavski at a performance of The Seagull. Now he had come over the entire Moscow out there to actors. They're performing their greatest hits on Broadway. The Cherry Orchard, Seagull, play by Gorky. She goes backstage. She says, "Oh, Mr. Stanislavski, do you think it's possible to achieve the same result with a group of American actors?" Certainly. Oh, and how long do you think you'd have to rehearse? 2 years. 2 years? But that's out of the question. Then, in that case, 2 weeks. He says, For what? To make our own theater. For a second, I think there's something wrong with my hearing. It's such a ridiculous idea. To begin with, we had no play, no money, no actors, no prospects. But the more I think about it, it makes complete sense. And that's how the group theater was born. Now, why am I telling all this? Because today is the age of amnesia. The day everybody forgets what happened the day before yesterday. I told this to Clifford Odets once, and he stuck in his play Paradise Lost. I said, we cancel our experience. Well, now I do something I never did before. I talk out loud. Yeah, try it sometime. You'll find exactly what you think. For 25 weeks, every Friday night at 11:59 in my hotel room, I would talk. And actors come listen to me after they finish their performances. I don't know what I was going to say. I mean, there was nobody. I was a play reader at the Theatre Guild. So that first night, I'm sitting there, and Strasberg and Cheryl, they get up first to speak. They talk about what we're planning to do, the kind of theater we're planning to have. And I'm looking at the faces of all these actors. I'm wondering what made them come here tonight. What's going on inside their heads? Maybe they're too excited to go to sleep because they just finished a performance. Or maybe they thought we were serving food. Or maybe like me, they think something's missing in the American theater. They want to find out what it is. So when I get up, I haven't the slightest idea what I'm going to say. Maybe you're here because you say, I have to act. I want to act. Why? To make money. Well, you can't. There's a depression. Suppose you want to act for fame. Your ego needs that. Give up acting if you don't become a big star. Suppose you want to show off. Well, that's not a bad thing either. It's part of human nature. And if we could all act as easily as we have the desire, we wouldn't discuss anything else. But the times make it necessary for us to question why we want to act. How we can get ourselves to the point where we're committed to act. You want to act today. You got to be a fighter. You got to learn how to duck and weave and function to your fullest potential. That's why you must have consciousness. But now you're saying, oh, I don't need somebody to tell me who I am. Oh, I know who I am. I listen to myself. Ah, but do you? Today, we're faced with oppression, poverty, disease, and we don't even see it because we're too scared to reach out. We're too scared to make contact. We're too scared. We're going to have to do something, and that frightens us. So we've become a nation of sleepwalkers. Somebody tell me, how could this have happened in a country like this? A country of dreamers, of pioneers who crossed this land in covered wagons to carve out a new frontier. A country of such intense passion that when I look at all the energies flying around, even I'm impressed. But where's your passion? And yours, and yours, and yours to fight for who you are as artists when you're faced with what masquerades the theater in this country? No. It's not enough to throw our most talented actors together in a classic play and say, bing, bang, boom, create great art. It's not. And you know it, and she knows it, and he knows it, and here, and here, and here. It's a fact. We don't have a theater today. And don't look at me like I'm committing sacrilege. It's the truth. But now you're saying, oh, but Mr. Clurman, you can't say these terrible things about our wonderful theater of 1930. Look at all the shows on Broadway. There's over 300 of them, and all the stars. There's Catherine Cornell, Lutton Fontanne, Helen Hayes. Ah, that's all it is. Just one big show, from top to bottom, from inside to outside, from here to there, show after show, cooked up, thrown together, without the least little bit of concern, whether it mean anything other than being a money-making proposition. But I believe in a theater that'll mean something to the actors who are acting in it. It'll mean something to society in which it's being performed. A theater that'll lead us to discover who we are, why we do what we do, why we want what we want, the truth about what's going on. So we walk out of the theater. We're more alive than we've ever felt in our entire lives.
That's fantastic.
Well, you're very kind. Thank you. Thank
Oh, absolutely. People got a good sampling of you in action and of Harold in action. And when you see that, what goes through your mind? What happens to you when you see yourself as Harold? And I mean, when you're doing it on stage, you're looking out, but when you're seeing it back, it's a totally different experience. You're seeing it in the eyes of the viewer, the audience.
Well, I know that that's Harold, come alive, and I accept that. So I really don't think about it too much, to tell you.
Which is good.
I know that he's come alive at that moment, and now it's been taped. But every time that he does come alive, it's for a live audience. And that's the difference for that transmission of the magic that happens in the moment when they actually experience Clurman in person and feel his passion and the depth of the heights that he ascends, and the ideas that mean so much to them. And that's what I'm able to share. And so when I watch it, it's like someone else. I don't know who that is and how that happened, and I have no idea.
Which is an unusual experience, but a beautiful one, huh?
Yes. And that's part of the experience of when I take my show to these countries or to these universities across America. I've been to 20 states so far, and I plan to be, I have other invitations coming up. What happens is I also do my Art of Transformation workshop. And I was just going to share with you a few of the words in my book, because something occurred to me. Because, for example, when I went to Mostar, to Bosnia and Herzegovina, they're having incredible, tremendous pressure right now, because not only the Serbs and the Bosniaks and the Muslims who are all living together, but especially when I traveled from Sarajevo down to Mostar, which is what is referred to as a tinderbox, because there is so much tension there, as there is across the country, and I pray so much for peace. But I had these young students who are part of a children's theater there, and they are the children of the different ethnicities. And I said, tell me, we have to talk. What does it mean to you that you're working on an art form that is a healing art form? Do you know how to share this healing feeling inside to bring this peace to your family and to people? Because some of them have relatives that are fighting each other. And so, and as I said to them, who is your heart beating for? It certainly beats for your family, for your country. It also beats for every other heart that beats in the city. But we're all connected to one another. Even though there are differences, what brings us together? Transformation. We have to keep finding ways to teach each other a way forward through peace, through love. And the transformation that I go through to become Harold Clurman is a process built on truth. And once I discovered this deep well inside and let this stream of consciousness of what's true in every detail come alive, that takes me forward. So I said to them, you carry inside you this deep well that you can draw from every single day, and it will guide you to let all doubts fade away. And through the power of your art, you can inspire others to come together to live in harmony. And that's truly why I travel to so many countries, because I know that they take away that kind of passion and that kind of the healing power of art that comes alive in the moment.
Which is beautiful. You talk about some of the countries. Uniclair's watching from the Philippines.
Oh,
yeah. Okay. Jane's watching from Sweden. Marlon is watching from Canada, from Ontario. Maureen's in Arizona, and Crystal is in Connecticut, and they're from all around the world.
Yes,
including here in the United States.
That's a beautiful thing. You have such a marvelous show that you're able to touch lives in so many different places, and it's truly what I believe in. But it's also remarkable because you don't always know how an audience will react. And when I was in Harare in Zimbabwe, and they react differently during a performance. They actually talk back to you during the show. And when Harold Clurman came out, I was actually performing inside a huge tribal hut, and around me was 200 Zimbabweans, and I was the only, you might say, white person, Harold Clurman. And it was quite a remarkable experience. And there were so many people packed that they were actually sitting next to me, right touching my elbow, because they all wanted to come to the show.
They wanted to come.
Harold Clurman, when he got up, he had to say, "Excuse me, I have to, talk to the others." And at the end of the show, I always do a Q&A. I also give a speech in every language. I do it phonetically, no matter what country I'm in. It could be Sinhala, it could be Zulu, it could be Spanish. So I always do a speech, and then I also do a Q&A and start speaking as me. At that moment, 4 or 5 young Zimbabwean men stood up and started screaming and dancing and going berserk. And I said, "Oh my God, what's going on?" And a young woman stood up and they said, "They think that you have now become possessed by a spirit." And they thought I was really Harold Clurman, and they didn't know who this other person was that appeared before them. And of course, in Zimbabwe, they have an incredibly rich heritage that goes way back to their kings, and the shaman and the whole history is very important to them. So they thought I was actually possessed, and I had to calm them down and say that's part of what the transformation I go through. And
I can see how they could possibly get that.
I don't know what you mean.
I mean, if that's not possessed, I don't know what might be.
Well, Harold was like that. When you took classes with him, he would jump up on the top of the table and start screaming at the top of his lungs. And if I did stuff like that, they'd carry me away. But he'd get all red in his face, and he would get so excited and say, "You've got to go out and change the world. You can do it through the great art of the theater." And then one moment later, he'd be so quiet, and he said, "As my dear friend Edwin Booth say, an actor is a sculptor who carves in snow." And you go,
like that.
"Wow, that's remarkable." And of course, he was talking about his dear friend Edwin Booth, who, of course, lived in the 1860s. But that's the way Harold Clurman was. He considered everyone from history part of his living history.
I mentioned, you mentioned too, and I mentioned in the introduction that you are a wonderful artist as well. And let's go through some of that. Look at this.
Well, this I actually painted in South Africa. This is Mandela's original house that he lived in, and I was trying to capture the movement of South Africa and what that house symbolized. So I paint in every country I go to. Sometimes I paint on bark. This is Mykonos. I was performing in Athens, Greece, and I was invited down there to actually...
Look at all the color.
Yes, it was remarkable. So I love to paint in color. It's one of my favorite things to do. Taj Mahal in India, of course. So I'm able to try to express the movement and the feeling of what India is like. And it's very important. My mother imbued upon me, and she's a great artist, as is my sister, Janice. She's also a great artist. And so it's all in the family. And one day we'll have a great exhibition of our art. And this is in Uruguay, in Paysandú. I painted this. These men come in their wagons into Paysandú from out in the small villages, and you hear their clip, clip, clop, clop, clip, 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 clop, clop on the sidewalk and on the street about 5 a.m. And they're going down the streets to collect the garbage, which they're going to take out to their villages. And so I decided to paint one of them heading back to his village from Paysandú in the very early morning.
Absolutely. Beautiful work.
Well, thank you.
Absolutely.
I like to paint on lots of different materials. This is actually Zagreb. And I was performing there at the National Academy at the university. And so I tried to, my view out the window had all of these magnificent roofs in orange. But I never know what will happen. See, sometimes I will paint on a shell, you see. This is a regular shell, but I'll paint an elephant inside, you see. So I just don't know. Or this is a piece of bark, and I'll paint a bird. And this actually, again, is a piece of tile that I found at the Taj Mahal. And of course, I painted Taj Mahal. And then when I was in the Cayman Islands, this came down right on my arm, and I picked it up and I said, well, okay, I'm going to paint a bird inside and the swirling air. So that's what's happened on my travels as an artist.
And tell us about the room you're in and the beautiful things that are around you too, on the walls and everything.
Oh, well, right behind me, I have this gorgeous drape that is, of course, Vincent van Gogh's special painting. And behind me also is when I was down in the Cayman Islands. And over here, this is when I was down in the Malaysia. This is a puppet, shadow puppet. So I do bring back some extraordinary things from my travels, but to me, they're living and breathing, surrounding me with their art. One of the things that I found when I went to a beach in Iceland was the pumice stones that were on the beach. So to me, I have them on my table and they speak to me about the earth. And that was one of the most amazing experiences when I was with Grotowski. He did an earth exercise with me of how the fire that's actually always burning in the center of the earth, and how that is affecting all of our lives every moment, and we don't even think or realize it, but it's actually continual, and the earth is turning in two different directions. And so during this exercise, he wanted me to experience what it was like with the earth turning and the fire at the same time affecting me. And it was traumatic.
Now we know why you're on As the World Turns.
But I, like Marlon Brando and Picasso said, you have to steal from everyone so that you can learn what, if it works for you, if it feeds your soul, if you learn, it's part of what it means to be an artist. But you always come back to the truth of who you are and how you express yourself.
Let's talk about some of these interactions that, you've had. Sidney Poitier, James Earl Jones, Marlon Brando. Wow.
Yeah. Well, I interviewed Sidney for my book. And it's marvelous because I interviewed 50 teachers and acting teachers of America. And I said to them, well, you've taught all these marvelous students, but did they learn anything? And can I talk to one of the students and see what they learned? And so one of them said, well, why didn't it was, of course, Lloyd Richards, one of the greatest directors we've ever had, who did all of August Wilson's original productions. And he said, why don't you call up Sidney? He'll tell you something. And lo and behold, there was Sidney Poitier on the phone. And we had such a wonderful conversation together. Marlon Brando, it's so interesting because I'll tell you a funny story. When I was studying with Stella, one of the exercises that she always did for students was that she would say, okay, everybody, put all the chairs aside and you're going to now become chickens. Well, she did the same exercise with Marlon Brando. And so all of us, when, not when Marlon was in the class, but later on when I was in the class with Stella, she said to us, okay, everybody run around, you're chickens, go ahead. And so we all ran around like we were chickens. And then she said, there's a bomb falling. So we all looked up and we all ran around even more and screamed and went crazy. Well, when Marlon Brando did it in her class years before,
he said, hey, Stella.
No, he actually went in a corner and sat down and laid an egg. And everybody went over to him and pulled him and said, come on, there's a bomb. And so at the end of the class, Stella said to Marlon, there was a bomb falling.
Yeah.
Said, yeah, but a chicken doesn't know what a bomb is. So you see, the reality is you always have to live as that human being or that chicken in the true given circumstances.
Right, exactly.
Yeah. And then later on, when I
leaving the room, right?
Exactly. I did a film that Brando was in, The Freshman, with Matthew Broderick. And I was in a short scene when he's walking down the street going
I mentioned that,
into the parlor. And what was so interesting, of course, was his gait. I'll never forget that because he passed right by me and sort of nudged me, just to get down the street. And it was a very interesting moment because this shuffle that he acquired was a lesson of its own and it always had to do with the clothes one wears and the shoes and what it speaks. And of course, everything speaks when you're on a stage, as this human being. And so I noticed that. And that was one of the interesting things, since you say Marlon said Stella. Well, when he was doing A Streetcar Named Desire, Stella did not come to opening night. She came to the second performance. And when she came, he was really terrified, because she, of course, Marlon was one of her students, as was Bobby De Niro and Warren Beatty and many others. So when she came to see him in Streetcar, he was almost petrified, and he was sitting in his dressing room at the end of the performance with his head down. And she came to the door. She didn't go inside. She just stood at the door, and she said, "Shoes." He hadn't found the right shoes, Stanley Kowalski, yet. And so, of course, once he did, the performance really, really took off. And as I say in my book, women actually fainted in the audience when he took his shirt off. I mean,
imagine.
It's pretty remarkable. Yeah.
And then you worked with talked to Adrienne Barbeau.
Adrienne Barbeau is, of course, in my book, and in an interview along with Billy Crudup and so many others in Solo Transformation on Stage. It's so important.
We're going to have to give you a list of the folks we'd love to have on the show. Adrienne, definitely. Love to have her. Still love her from the Maude days with B. Arthur.
Yeah.
Carol.
Well, that's one of the wonderful things about having these individuals, because they're able to share their insights about what it takes to be a solo performer on the stage. Yes. And when I got to know someone like Julie Harris, and she became a very, very lovely friend, she was very common sense.
Yes.
She told it like it was, but she also had such a sweet and gentle, loving, caring heart. And somebody like Spalding Gray, who's also in the book, he was in a very unique interview, because we missed each other on the phone when he first called. So I come back, and on the machine, I hear, "Hi, it's Spalding. Oh, I guess you're not there. Well, I'm going to leave this message, and I guess we'll talk. And it's so good to talk to you. How are you? I want to tell you what happened today." And the message went on for 20 minutes. He actually, it was a Spalding Gray show on my machine. So you just never know what will happen when you start doing. I've done over probably 1,600 interviews for my newspaper, The Soul of the American Actor, and also for this book, Create, which is my second book. And in it are 130 interviews with people like Carol Burnett and Brian Cox, and also Larry Gelbart, who wrote MASH.
Carol Burnett, fabulous.
Oh,
she's the real deal. She's exactly, I had a chance to chat with her and met her, and she is exactly like anybody would hope. Approachable, warm, funny, real, no airs about her.
Yes.
Florence Henderson was like that too. Florence
Yes.
Henderson, just charming, delightful, fabulous people. You know what I mean?
Yes.
The
there it is. There's Create. Yes.
How long did it take you to, compile this?
Oh, that took me about 6 months, because I also said to many of the people in the book, including Felicia Rashad and Brian Cox and Stephen Lang and so many others, if you're an artist, I'd like to include some of your art in the book. So I have over 100 paintings and artworks in there. And Al Hirschfeld was a very dear friend, so I have several artworks by him, and it's just been an amazing.
Tommy Toon, the names, Chaka Khan. I mean, a variety of different people.
Exactly.
Oh my God, we're going to have to fax him our wish list.
Well, I wanted to talk about all the creative artists.
That's fantastic.
All together. Chita Rivera is there, and Tina Chen, and
Carol
so many
Channing,
special people.
Marvin Hamlish.
Marvin Hamlish is there, a lot of musicians and composers, and also I have educators as well. And it's very important to introduce people to the whole spectrum of the creative arts, because it's what and truly who we are. And even if people don't consider themselves artists, believe me, there's something inside of them that's truly artistic.
Oh, everybody has a story. Everybody has a gift. Absolutely. We talk about that a lot on the show.
Yeah.
Celebrated Goodwill Cultural Ambassador. I love that title. That's definitely a lovety title. Tell us about that.
Well, that's what I truly believe in, because we have a chance to bring grace and harmony in the world. And when I travel to these countries, whether it's Bangkok or Kathmandu, I was doing this incredible workshop in Kathmandu in Nepal. And in the workshop, I had young people that were actually ages 7, 8, 9, all the way up to 20, 30 years old. But we all began to become like a family together, because we began to share what it means to be human, the things that we really share in common with one another as people on this planet. And that's what I talk about in the workshop. And one of the other things is I also give them a chance to be as free as possible, that they may not always have in their normal life. And one of the things I always do is I take everyone flying. And people go, yeah, but what do you mean flying? And as I talk them through the experience of flying, by the end of the exercise, they actually feel like they have left the earth and have actually flown. And it gives this kind of freedom of knowing what it's like when you actually step inside another human being. So that's what I'm trying to be a bridge for. It was the same thing when I was in Malaysia. And actually, the Ministry of Culture and Tourism actually chose me because I was a Fulbright specialist there. And they invited me to travel to 5 other states all across the country to bring my show and my workshop for the first time ever to teach Stanislavski across Malaysia.
Wow.
And I went to the island of Penang with also young children, and up to the very top to Ala Satar, to the border. And when I was in these workshops, they had never, ever been taught by an American or ever heard these ideas before. But by the end, I explained to them that this is really a coming together.
Yes.
We are really actually expressing what is truly the same feelings we feel with one another. And you have that when you also enter into the soul of another human being. No matter who you're playing, you have to find what it is that makes them fly and makes them experience emotion. And so I began to share these kinds of feelings and expressions with them. It's such a life-changing and life-giving opportunity. And so I've been very, very blessed, needless to say.
Even if you're playing a chicken, you got to learn what makes them fly, right?
Especially when you're playing a chicken.
You know who knew that too is somebody who always pops on during our show. Mr. George Burns is here.
Well, there he is. Hello, Mr. Burns. How are you? It's good to see you again. I missed you so much. It's so I love your glasses and I love your cigar. It's wonderful.
And his red pocket square. He always pops on during the show, and he said you're knocking it out of the park. He's learned so much. He absolutely loves the conversation and all the levity everybody is showing as they're watching. And he said you are a super talent and a class act, and coming from God too, when he played God in the movies, huh?
I know. I loved his God. I swear I did. My goodness, it's such a pleasure to meet you, George, in person.
In person, there he is. He's always there. He usually hangs out down below, and he's got his martini. He's always got his dry martini there with his cigar.
Yes, I see that.
He sends his best and best regards, Mr. Dapper George Burns.
Thank you so much.
Right. You love what you're doing. It's really a blessing and a joy to you. And what are some other exciting things that are coming up for you, Ronald?
Well, I'm actually working on 2 postings right now through the Fulbright, and also 2 universities that I'm in discussion with as well. And I have
a visiting professor as well, right?
Yes. It's been marvelous. And then, I have to tell you, every single day that you wake up is a day to accomplish so much. And one of the things that means so much to me is being in nature. And I have to remind everyone that it's very important to take the time to look at a cloud,
I
to
say that all
go and
the time.
put your toes in the sand at the beach. So I actually spend at least an hour or two every single day of my life painting, surrounded by the birds, surrounded by the trees, feeling the wind crossing my legs, and it's life-giving and life-changing. So
It
I do
is.
want to say how important that is. And so I continue to do that. And then on top of it, I'm the librettist for a new opera about Henrik Ibsen. It's the first opera ever written about Ibsen, and it's now under consideration by a very major opera house in America. So knock on wood.
That's
Um,
fantastic. I'm not a librettist, but Saturday was my birthday. I am a Libra.
oh, well, happy birthday to you. Happy
Thank you.
birthday to you. Happy birthday, dear Jim. Happy birthday to you.
From the librettist to the Libra.
Well, mine is coming up in October, so we're pretty close. Isn't that
That
amazing?
is cool. Is there
Yeah.
also a website people can go to?
Sure, they can go to letitbeart.com.
Letitbeart.com.
They can go to Soul, S-O-U-L, soulamericanactor.com, of course, and they can go to createthebook.com. And my opera is ibsenopera.com. So I have a few websites.
Got a couple of websites
that
there,
people
huh?
can enjoy.
Grab
Exactly.
those domain names quickly.
Yeah, well, the thing about soulamericanactor.com is my newspaper, which is in print as well, but it's actually also like 75 pages and all in color. So you'll see people like Ben Vereen there, or Janine Tesori, or so many extraordinary, all different types of artists, and articles of artists and interviews all over the world. So it is truly an international newspaper, but also it's about the soul, the thing that really moves us forward as human beings and as artists.
That's what it's all about, my friend. That's the name of the game. And, it's really appreciating the simple things in life and living empathetically and respectfully, kindness, and looking out for the other person, practicing emotional intelligence and, just looking at the world in a way that isn't just so narrow-minded and just focused just on self. You have to take care of self, but when the world is operating in a balanced and harmonious way with empathy and kindness, the earth spins a lot smoother on its axis. We're meant to be together. We're meant to be, enjoying the fruits of the labor, the fruits of the land, the fruits of great conversation, and the things that seem to be sort of going away a little bit because we're so fast paced and everything is now and next and now and next. And for me, I've always liked doing the now, not so I can immediately jump to the next, but so I can do the now and then stop and savor what we just did in the now and then go to the next. There used to be that little pause there. Okay, wow, we did all that. We experienced that. That was great. Now let's relish and revel in it. And now let's go to next. But now we're so fast paced and ramped up and everything is next, next, next. There's no time to even celebrate or appreciate what you just did, saw, tasted, and celebrated, experienced, because you got to be doing the next.
It's so funny you say that, because that's exactly what Harold Clurman talks about in his play, and that's why it means so much to people when they hear him. And that's the magic of when you're doing a live performance in the moment, like you're doing your show right now.
Yeah.
In this moment, this is what is really happening. And when you're in a theater and you're able to express these ideas that are really illuminating the goodness of humanity, because the theater is like a temple. At that moment, you are feeding their souls. And at the same time, of course, Clurman has to say what he has to say because of his great passion, but because it needs to be said and needs to remind people. Like Clurman would always say, people don't remember what they did the day before yesterday, so you have to say it all over again. And it's the case. And so people say to me, how can you keep doing the show so many times over and over again? And the reason is it's never done the same way ever exactly done
Exactly.
again. So it's always the first time. The audience is different. And I could be, 200 miles from Mount Everest in Kathmandu, or I could be in a tribal hut, or like I was in Tangier. I was in the Palace Makzan in a marble courtyard with seagulls floating over me. You just don't know. So that's the tremendous gift of performing live.
Or you could be having dinner at Sardi's.
Yes,
with all the Hirschfelds around you.
Which is pretty remarkable. When I interviewed Al, he was sitting in his barber chair in his apartment up at 95th Street, which that barber chair is now up at Lincoln Center Library. And he was drawing away while I asked him the questions that ended up in Create. And when I first met him, I said, I'm thinking of maybe making a newspaper about the art of the theater and the art of the actor, because we don't have something like that in America. And I was hoping to maybe use one of your drawings. And Al said to me, you use whatever you want. It sounds like a great idea to me. And so I ended up being the only newspaper in the country that could have as many Hirschfelds as I ended up doing. And so you just never know. Life is just full of surprises.
The last time I had dinner at Sardi's, for those who are watching Sardi's, of course, that famous restaurant right there across from the Majestic Theater, where Phantom of the Opera has been all these years, and just right there in Manhattan, place a lot of people like to go to when they're going to shows, with all of the beautiful caricatures all around of some of your favorite stars.
That's right.
We were having dinner, and we had gone to a show, having dinner. And there was just a few people there. It was quiet because it was later. And Jackie Mason was at the table across with a very beautiful young lady with him. And they were giggling and laughing. And we didn't want to interrupt, but it was good old Jackie Mason was there.
Yeah.
You never knew who you'd see there.
I would run into Jackie on the 57th Street all the time. And I ended up interviewing him for my newspaper.
You did.
I did. I had a great time. And it was such a great joy to talk to Jackie Mason. He was such a great, fantastic interview, because he never stopped talking about how much he loved the theater and he loved to do his shows, and he was always moving. And that was the great thing about Jackie.
You know who that also sounded like? A little like the producer-director Gary Marshall. It sounded a little bit like Gary Marshall, too. Yeah.
They sound alike because
there's a similar New York sort of
New York accent, exactly.
The New York Jewish accent and personality.
Well, that's the fun of. I mean, in the show when I do Let It Be Art, you get not only to meet Clurman, but you get to meet Stella Adler and Lee Strasberg, as you saw, and Stanislavski and so many others. And when I also, when I was growing up, would love to do voices, because some of my idols were people like Rich Little and Frank Gorshin and David Fry. So I would do Carol Channing. It was so much fun to do her, and I never stopped. But you know, another fellow I've tried to do over the years, and Jim, you probably know what I mean, because you've got the same name as I do.
Yes.
And being Jimmy Stewart, I could go around calling you Jimmy. How about that?
Exactly right. Exactly right. Miracle on 34th Street and so much more.
Oh my goodness.
Yes,
Amazing.
I say you can call me James, Jim, or Jimmy. Just don't call me late. Just don't call me late for supper.
Exactly. I've heard that. Yes.
You love doing the characters, huh?
Oh, it's so much fun. That was part of the joy of growing up in Miami Beach, because I would get to
there's your answer, Marlon. He's originally from Coral Gables, Florida, there in South Miami.
Yeah. So but you know what, as time progressed, of course, over the years, I found what I really wanted to do, and this has become my destiny. But of course, at the time when the show was created, I had no idea that it would be. And as I mentioned, I told Stella about it, and over a period of time, it evolved. And these, instead of just doing their voices, actually they come alive in the show as well. People like Strasberg and Stanislavski and those kind of individuals. And you also meet Clifford Odets and Aaron Copland as well, and there's Stanislavski too. So it's been such a joy, and then being able to share the others that are in the book, people like Steve Lang, who does this extraordinary show himself. And there's my newspaper, The Soul of the American Actor. And I've been able to have so many incredible interviews in there. I have to tell you, someone who's watching tonight, she happens to be 98 years old. Her name is Rita Fredericks, and she was the original producer of Dutchman, some of Leroy Jones'
Hello,
first.
Rita. Welcome to the Jim Masters Show.
Yeah,
live
and she
Pleasure
said
to
she
have
was
you
going
here.
to watch. She's such a dear friend. And I tell you, she travels all over the world. She just came back from trips in Vermont. I mean, this woman puts us to shame. She's such an extraordinary person.
Michael is watching from Shanghai, China, and he's listening while driving to work. Welcome from beautiful Shanghai, Michael. It's a pleasure to have you here on the Jim Masters Show live series, and we hope you'll watch often. Austin Field says, these are some great impressions. They're loving the impressions. Do you have a couple more?
Well, the funny thing is that what I've tried to do over the years is I've adapted them into my show. And so I hope that they will be able to catch Let It Be Art, and then they'll meet people like Lee Strasberg, or they'll meet Stella Adler, of course, the way she spoke. And one time she went into a store on Fifth Avenue and she spoke to them, and the person working there said, are you British? And she said, no, darling, just affected.
Just affected.
Just affected.
That was Stella Adler. Yeah.
Yes.
Wow.
Yeah. That's the marvelous thing about being able to experience unique individuals and also be able to share their joy of life, because that's what it's all about. And when I've been able to go, I was just also in Kenya not too long ago, performing at the National Theater, and being able to bring Harold Clurman there and teach workshops. That's what really touches my heart deeply.
Yes.
Because they're longing for this kind of mutual understanding, this kind of bridge that we can say, yes, we are a part of you and you're a part of us.
Yeah.
And that's what I continue to keep doing. And that's why I talk about it in my book. It's so important. One of the things that I've learned, especially in the countries that I've been to, is finding out what it is that really drives us forward as human beings, not what holds us back or what we don't have in common, or finding fault with each other. We have to find out what really moves our hearts together as human beings. And that's what it means to be, I believe, what I do through my work is a Goodwill Cultural Ambassador.
Exactly. From visiting around the world and leaving wonderful impressions around the world. We have you with Yoko Ono as well, huh?
Oh, yes. I did this movie, Homeless, and that was quite a unique experience. We really didn't get on the set till about 3 o'clock in the morning. And to see Yoko sitting there as a homeless person was quite an experience. But my role was to come along and offer her money. And she refused to take it. And I tried again, and I tried again, and she would not take it. And that was the scene. But it also spoke in a lot of ways, a lot of different ways, about the dignity of the person that she was bringing to life. And the funny thing about the film is that it's sort of become a very unique, almost cult classic, because nobody expected her to do a movie like that. So it was a privilege to work with her. And then I stayed in touch with her for several years afterwards. We would write to one another. So that's been one of the joys of getting to know and getting to work with different people over the years. And then being able to interview them because the same thing happened with someone like Christopher Plummer.
Yes,
I got to know him as a very good friend, and he's not only in Create, but he's also in my book, Solo Transformation on Stage. But at the very, very end of his life, he was so delighted that I had come out with this book that he said some extraordinary words about it. And then I told him about that I was going to take my opera Ibsen on tour to India, to the Philippines, and to Thailand. And he said, "Oh, that's so marvelous. It sounds like a Rudyard Kipling tour that I did in the movie, The Man Who Would Be King." And I said, could I please invite you to be an honorary member, a supporter of the opera? And of course, the opera didn't go on tour because of the pandemic. But he said to me, "Oh, you can use my name, of course, but as long as you don't put it in the curry." Oh, he was such a trip. So
that is funny.
Oh, he was such a joy to talk with, but what a rich history. And it's the same thing with, someone like Stephen Lang. I wanted to read you something special that he says in my book, because someone like that really reminds you of what it means, to be an actor. And he said here, I asked him, describe how you transform yourself into a character. And he says, "I do whatever is necessary to enter them completely. It's like what Daniel Boone is reputed to have said, just because I don't know where I am doesn't mean I'm lost. I love exploring and inhabiting that territory. The older I get, the whole phenomenon of becoming becomes all the more important for me. It's the only way I know to go about it." So you see, that's what it's truly about. We have to approach each day as this unlimited journey, and we don't know what's going to happen. But if we leave ourselves open completely to it, it's completely life-changing. And that's how I approach each day. That's why I feel so blessed to be on your show and hear the things you have to say as well.
Well, I appreciate that, Ronald. Very kind of you to say. And it was a blessing having you here and learning more about what, has you going forward and what your passions are and what your beliefs are. And Michael in Shanghai, thanks, Jim, for the great program, rewarding to me from your ideas, short thoughts sharing. Thank you for watching from Shanghai. Really love it. Austin Field, another wonderful show. Please subscribe for great content. Thank you. Merlin says, welcome to Michael in Shanghai, which is beautiful. And all these great comments that are coming in here. Thank you, everybody. Crystal says, thank you, Ronald, for sharing your art. Keep up the amazing and brilliant work. I wish you continued success and God bless you. And Kathleen in New York City, thank you for being here, Ronald. Smiles coming in from Jane in Sweden. And few more. Yeah. Maureen in Arizona, some of our lovely squad. Ronald, you're an amazing human. This has been such a fun conversation, getting to know your amazing talents. Thank you so much for being here. May your star continue to shine. God bless you, sir. Maureen in Arizona, and Sherry in Kansas, USA. Thank you for sharing your career with us, Ronald. This has been a very fun and interesting conversation tonight. Please come back, yes, to Lovelady Hall once again, which is fantastic. I love that. Thanks for these comments, gang. You are all duly noted. And Merlin in Ontario, Canada, very entertaining guy, Ronald. That's right. He pulled a lot of different things out of his hat tonight. This was a pleasure, and I hope the show met whatever expectations you had, and you enjoyed the time with me as much as I absolutely have with you, Ronald.
Thank you. It's the same way. I feel such a bond of love and caring and kindness. And what you're doing is making such a great difference in this world. So thank you so much for that. And it's such a joy to be with you.
Oh, you as well. And we'll have you back. We'll keep the porch light on and spread the word about our show. You know, folks that like to pop on, spread the word and keep watching. You can binge watch somewhere around 800 episodes almost, which is a lot of Lovelady, a lot of talking.
I've been watching some of them. Yes.
Oh, fantastic. We love that. And they already said you're a Lovelady. You're a Jim Master Show Lovelady. So that's kind of cool because, you know, I say it all the time. You can get an Oscar, an Emmy, a Telly, a Tony, a Grammy, a Peabody, all these fabulous awards.
Yes.
But then when you get designated as a lovety on the Jim Masters Show Live, are your feet tingling right now? That's usually
They
what
are.
guests
Yes.
say happens. One of our guests, I think it's James Gavin, the author, he said that he was levitating
Mm.
when he heard he was a lovety. He was
I love
watching
it.
from Fire Island, and he said, "I'm levitating right now, Jim."
Loving the levitating.
I said, "You're a levitating lovety."
There's no other way to be. That sounds
That's
wonderful.
it. Well, thanks for the kind words too. And as my father has always said and told us even when we were kids, Jim, whenever anybody says something kind or nice to you, ask them to please put it in writing and address it management.
Well, I'd love to send you one of my paintings. So we'll be in touch, and I'll be glad to send you one.
Fantastic. That's
Absolutely.
beautiful. Kind
My
of you,
pleasure.
Ronald. Ronald Rand. What a great name too, huh?
Well, thank you.
You know what I mean? Why would you change it?
I don't think I will. I think
People
I'll
ask me
use
if
it.
that's my name. I must have picked that for television or radio. Come on, that's too smooth. Jim Masters. That sounds so broadcast. Sounds like a television person. And I said, but it's the real. I'm the fifth one. It goes back to England and Ireland, and
Yeah.
I'm the real.
Well, we probably have that in common because I also have British in my blood too.
See,
So there you go.
God bless the Queen.
Yeah.
And now the King. As they
Right.
say.
Exactly.
You be well, Ronald. This was really a pleasure.
Thank
Thanks
you.
for all of the great time we chatted. Would you know? What? Some people ask me, is there a length on our show? And I said, short, long, medium.
Yeah.
However long a guest has, I don't force them to compartmentalize everything in 10 minutes because I don't think you can get much in or get a lot of feeling out when it's 5 minutes, 7 minutes, 10 minutes. Or it's done just in a typical interview style, as opposed to I like to do conversations. And so I tell everybody it can run as long as the flow is happening and people are interacting and, having a good time and the guest is expressing and entertaining and whatever it may be. So we did almost an hour and 45 minutes.
Holy cow. Well, before we go, I'd love to read you one.
And we didn't charge admission. I think we'll have to change that.
If I could read you one last thing.
Yes.
To end with. It's a wonderful thing that Andre de Shields said. And what I actually did was I did a painting, which you can see there. You see the 4 elements in the book when you get a copy. And he says, the harmony of humanity. We've forgotten it, but we can relearn it. There are only four sources of humanity. One is air, one is water, one is earth, and one is fire. In these 4 elements is harmony, and harmony is vibrational. Each of these elements moves. Each of these elements has a rhythm. Each of these elements has a voice. Each of these elements has music as part of its essence. And that is where we discover everything we invent. It's in harmony. So thank you. It's been a harmony being with you, Jim.
Well, that's one of the traits of Libra, balance and harmony, because they're the sign of the scales where you want everything balanced and harmonious. And that's what I always try to do. So what a perfect way to wrap our episode here with that fantastic commentary. Thank you, Ronald, for sharing that. And thanks for being with us and interacting with all of our fabulous viewers watching around the world who can definitely see this again right here on our YouTube channel, gang. You can definitely, if you want to see the entire episode again, you can see it on our YouTube channel, Jim Masters TV. We encourage you to give it a thumbs up. Yeah, there's a little thumbs up icon right there on all the episodes. Subscribe to our YouTube channel, Jim Masters TV. Give us a like and leave a comment on the YouTube channel as well. We would love to hear your feedback. Post a comment on the channel for this episode and all the episodes you enjoy. Ronald, a real pleasure, and thanks so much for joining us. And congratulations on everything. Keep out there, sharing the spirit, sharing the levity, as we call it. And we'll chat again real soon, okay, my friend?
Absolutely. Thank you.
You be well. Love. You take care. Did you have dinner already?
Yep.
Good. Good. Finally, somebody had dinner before they came on. They're usually starving afterwards. You can have a little snack now. You've
I'll have
sent
a
for your
little
supper.
snack. Thank you.
Take care, Ronald.
You too. Have a good evening.
You too. Bye-bye now. Cheers.
Bye-bye.
Ronald Rand here on the Jim Masters Show, live entertainment lifestyle variety talk show series. Hope you guys enjoyed it. That was a lot of fun. We took the conversation in a lot of different directions, and it was very, sometimes it was spiritual, inspiring, funny, creative, interactive. It was all these cool things. And I absolutely enjoyed it, and I hope you did as well. Gang, if you'd like to see it again, we have conversations here on our show and lots of entertainment. Got a chance to see a nice, good, lengthy clip there from the show, Let It Be Art. Make sure you check that out. He takes that show all around the world, which is really, really exciting. I mean, he's been on all the different continents, and he's traveled the world with that show, with his message, Harold's message as well. We want to show you the book again, Solo Transformation on Stage, and also the other book he showed us, which is really, really fantastic. And that one is called Create. And that's another masterpiece as well. We showed some of the artwork, which is fantastic. All for you right here on the Jim Masters Show. Like, subscribe, comment, and share. Share away. We would love that. We thank Ronald for joining us here on the show. Celebrated Goodwill Cultural Ambassador, acclaimed director, performer extraordinaire. Got a chance to learn a little bit more about him. He's worked with some of the greats. Again, he's been on some of your favorite television series, all of them, from drama to comedy to Saturday Night Live, movies galore, stage, off-Broadway, off, and a whole host of other incredible things. He's worked with some of the greats. He's chatted with some of the greats. We talked about James Earl Jones. We talked about Marlon Brando, Sidney Poitier, and many other names. Christopher Plummer, Adrienne Barbeau. Yeah, really, really cool. Thanks for the comments as well, gang. You guys are fantastic. Yes, we are still praying for everybody that is in Florida. It's a very serious situation there. And we have family and friends there and colleagues too. When we were on the phone with them today, everybody good so far, but it's a tough situation for everybody. So prayers for everybody watching in Florida. I tell you, how do you find these amazing guests? Working very hard. This show has become, even though I have full-time work that keeps me incredibly busy in the world of television and radio, where I don't get much sleep as a result. Then adding this series, this has become like a full-time job, doing all the aspects of booking the guests and all of the promotion and executive producing the show and hosting the show and just everything that we do with it. It's, I play off a lot of my TV background, so I bring that here to the Jim Masters Show Live. But one of the things is the guests, and that's a big process. We are already, it's the end of September here, and we're booked with guests all the way into mid-November, which is amazing. That's weeks and weeks and weeks. And some more extraordinary people who are coming in from Broadway and Hollywood, television, film, music, stage, culinary arts, comedy, sports, inspiration, and everything else. Good to see you guys. Good to see everybody. Crystal and Maureen and Merlin and Kathleen, you as well. Thank you very much for the comments. Crystal as well. Right back at you. Thank you, Jim, for another fantastic show. Appreciate that. Don't forget, gang, some of this levity, definitely share it on our YouTube channel. Leave a comment on the YouTube channel as well. When you do that, YouTube sees that. We see that. We love it and appreciate it. But YouTube sees it, and it helps the algorithm. So that means more people, they'll take this episode and they'll blast it out to more of the world when you click thumbs up, like, and when you leave a comment for us. So when you do leave a comment, it actually helps our show grow. And like Michael in Shanghai, China says, you got this. You got it, Michael. Welcome to the show. Thank you, Jim. Can't wait to watch what I missed. Absolutely. That's why we archive all of these episodes for you. Day in and day out. You can enjoy them all at your leisure, 24/7. They're available for you right here on our YouTube channel, Jim Masters TV, where we're bringing back the lost art of conversation. Did you see the episode when Loretta Swit was here? She was amazing. A lot of people loving that episode as the television series MASH celebrates its 50th anniversary. Did you see when soap opera star, one of the most recognizable faces in daytime television, Eileen Kristen, as well as singer and performer, was with us just the other night? Did you see when 80s and 90s hitmaker Daniel James, Simon Cowell protege, singer and actor, joined us direct from England, from Great Britain, just about a week ago? Just some of the folks who've stopped by the Jim Masters Show series, and we thank you again for stopping by as well, and we appreciate all of you. So we're going to wrap up. Around here, we never say goodbye. We say see you later, ciao, cheers, shalom, sayonara, hasta la vista, slancha, take care, be well, moi loop, and all the rest. Yes, Jane, I agree. Jane watching in Sweden. He was a great storyteller, very interesting to listen to. Perfect. I'm glad you enjoyed our guest. Relax. Yes, we're going to do that right now. We haven't had dinner yet. It's approaching 9 o'clock at night, and we haven't had dinner yet. It's been that kind of busy, crazy day. We're going to have it now. We've got some fabulous chicken in the oven, and we've got some nice basmati rice and a little vegetable ready to go. That's it. And my stomach is purling a little bit. It's purling. It's sort of, levitating on its own, saying, time to eat, Jim, time to eat. All right, gang, we love you all. Take care, be well. As we always say, be good to one another, take care of one another, and don't forget to take care of yourself. Regardless of where you live, how much money you make, what your zip code is, your gender, your height, your weight, religious views, political views, if any, none of that matters. Here at the Jim Masters Show, you're all welcome to join us here from all around the world for entertainment, laughs, inspiring and poignant moments, special moments, and whatever else we can deliver for you here on our Entertainment Lifestyle Variety Talk Show series. Sleep well and hugs. You as well, Kathleen. We will sleep well tonight. Take care, gang. We love you all. And thanks for joining us on this episode of the Jim Masters Show. We'll see you on the next one. Take care. Cheers.